Is this the beginning of the secret that BTS has been hiding? Jin finally speaks up, revealing the contents of Jungkook's conversation in Los Angeles that turns out to involve Taehyung. Why did he hesitate before answering? Is this about a conflict that has been ignored, or is it a hidden message to the army? This fact could change the way we see their relationship forever. Los Angeles, which used to be just a glamorous backdrop for concerts and major events, has now turned into a silent witness of a moment that left the entire army speechless. A moment that wasn't caught on official cameras, wasn't announced in major media, and wasn't even on BTS's official schedule, but was instead revealed from Jin's own mouth. Is this a coincidence? Or is Jin deliberately opening up a little loophole so that the public knows that something bigger is going on behind the scenes? This news stems from an appearance that was initially considered normal. Jin is seen in Los Angeles, joining the other members who have been there before. But the camera highlights that captured his brief interaction with Jungkook were just the beginning of a big puzzle. No one expected that the meeting would spark a conversation that is now being talked about all over social media. Jin, who is usually calm and full of control, looks at Jungkook with an expression that is difficult to decipher, a mixture of curiosity, concern, and a little hesitation. The question is, what are they really talking about? Why did Jin wait until he returned to Korea to talk about it openly, and even then in a tone that seemed to test the reaction of his audience? In a brief backstage interview at a charity event they attended, Jin uttered a phrase that instantly made the room temperature change. You want to know what Jungkook was talking about in LA? Looks like it's about someone you know very well. At first glance, it sounds like a joke, but the tone is too serious to be considered just a joke. The army reacted immediately. Taehyung's name began to appear in the comments and trending on social media.
Why?
As there were several eyewitnesses who claimed to see Jungkook sitting alone in one of the hotel cafes where they were staying, staring at his phone screen for quite a while before joining the other members. Some even claim that his face looks a little tense, as if he is thinking about something heavy. Is this what Jin meant? Part of the mystery deepened when Jin added a sentence that sounded like a hint and a warning. Sometimes, people talk about someone not because they hate him, but because they miss him. A statement that is too simple for the size of a big secret, but that is precisely what makes it even more difficult to solve. Is Jungkook actually talking about Taehyung because there is an emotional distance between them? Or is this all just an overinterpretation of the public hungry for BTS's internal drama? These questions were further inflamed when one of the music journalists present that night claimed to see Jin and Jungkook talking in a low but intense tone in a corner of the room. No one could hear her words, but their body language told more than imagined. Jungkook nodded slightly with a slight smile, while Jin shrugged as if to say, "It's your choice." And now, with Jin's half-open confession, the public is caught in a whirlpool of speculation. Is it about a personal message Jungkook wants to convey to Taehyung through Jin? Or is this the beginning of a much bigger reveal, one that might change the dynamics of the group forever? Why did Jin choose to say it now? And in front of the camera, as if to reinforce his curiosity, Jin closed his statement that night with an unusual smile, a smile that looks like it holds 1,000 secrets. Clearly, there are things you can't hear right away, at least not right now. A sentence that left millions of soldiers around the world sleepless, wondering what was really going on between Jin, Jungkook, and Taehyung in the middle of a glittering Los Angeles full of secrets. The rays of streetlights in the night Los Angeles reflect a pale golden color on the surface of a car stopped in front of a 5-star hotel. Behind the dark glass, a figure familiar to millions of people around the world came out with a cautious step. Jin. At that time, local paparazzi probably just thought her arrival was to attend a casual meeting or just rest before returning to Korea. However, what happened afterwards proved that his arrival in LA was not just an ordinary visit. When Jin stepped into the hotel lobby, a staff member who arranged the luggage was seen glancing at the elevator that was already open. In it, Jungkook stands alone, wearing a black hoodie and a hat that covers almost his entire face. However, their eyes met, an instant, but enough to make the genie accelerate her pace. Is this a coincidence, Or does Jin know that Jungkook is waiting for him there? Sources in the lobby area said it was a quick but tense moment. There were no excited greetings, no hugs, only looks that seemed to contain sentences that did not need to be said in public. When the elevator door closed, the hotel's CCTV camera recorded something interesting. Jungkook looked down, then pressed the floor button that was not the floor of his room. Did he take Jin to another place to talk in private? A few hours later, fanbase accounts began sharing the news that Jin was seen leaving the hotel alone. But what made the public uproar was the confession of one of the restaurant staff on the rooftop of the hotel, who claimed to see Jin and Jungkook sitting opposite each other at the corner table. From a distance, they seemed to be talking. Jungkook occasionally rubs his nape of the neck, a habit he usually does when he's nervous or hiding something. Jin, on the other hand, only nodded slowly, occasionally smiling a little, but his gaze remained fixed on Jungkook, as if trying to read his mind, and this is where the mystery grows. According to the testimony, there was one moment where Jungkook covered his face with both hands, then said something in a low tone. Jin did not reply immediately. He just sat still for a few seconds, then leaned forward, replying with a single sentence that made Jungkook's expression change drastically. Unfortunately, no one heard the words clearly, but some of Jungkook's body gestures showed that the topic was very personal. Why did Jin, who is usually very private, then choose to hint at the contents of the conversation in public? And even more surprising, why did the genie implicitly mention that the conversation was about a person known to everyone? One name instantly filled fans' minds: Taehyung. Why Taehyung? Firstly, because the history of the relationship of the three has long been in the spotlight. There are many moments where Jungkook and Taehyung seem to be very close, but there is also a distance that suddenly appears without explanation. Secondly, because in recent months, rumors about tenuous communication between Jungkook and Taehyung have been heard more and more among international fans. And the third, the most suspicious, is that Taehyung himself once made a mysterious statement on social media that many interpreted as a message for someone in the group. If it's true that the talk is about Taehyung, then Jin's words about missing him make more sense. But missed in what context? Does Jungkook feel that his relationship with Taehyung is not the same as before? Or is there something that keeps them away, yet he can't communicate it directly? Some fans speculated that Jin was trying to give ARMY a subtle hint that whatever happened between Jungkook and Taehyung wasn't out of hatred, but rather because of circumstances that forced them apart. But of course, this speculation caused mixed reactions. Some felt that Jin was too risky with his words, because he knew that the ARMY would directly connect him with old rumors. Others believe that Jin did it on purpose to get the message to the right party, whether it was Taehyung himself or even their management. What made the atmosphere even hotter was the fact that after Jin returned to Korea, he uploaded a photo on social media. The photo shows a cup of coffee on a table with a view of the city of Los Angeles at night. No long captions, just one word: while waiting. This simple word makes wild interpretations pop up. Waiting for who? Waiting for what? Is he waiting for Taehyung to reply to something Jungkook said? And coincidentally or not, a few hours after the post, Taehyung's official account shared an Insta story showing the night sky with a short caption: "Some distance exists for good reason." There is no context, no explanation. But for the ARMY, which has been following this development since the beginning, the two posts feel like a silent conversation that only the people involved understand. Now the world is waiting to see if Jin will explain further, or if Jungkook himself will finally speak. Waiting for whether Taehyung will respond openly, or remain silent. And behind it all, the bigger question continues to haunt. What exactly happened in Los Angeles that night, which made Jin feel the need to talk about it before the world? That night in Los Angeles was different. The wind that usually carries the scent of the sea from Santa Monica is now just like storing a sense of weight, as if to absorb the conversation that took place at the hotel's rooftop corner table. Jin sat back, his hands gently squeezing the glass of cold water, while his gaze occasionally swept across the city's sky filled with light. Jungkook, in front of him, looked down deeply, his fingers tapping on the table without a pattern, and no servant dared to approach too often. They knew, not only because of the status of the guests they were serving, but also because of the aura of silence that enveloped the table. From a distance, some of the staff noticed, with curiosity mixed with vigilance, that the two's body language did not resemble a casual encounter at all. Jungkook took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. "Hi," he said slowly, almost in a whisper. "If I say this, don't tell anyone." His eyes looked at Jean, full of doubt but also like pleading for understanding. Jean didn't answer right away. He tilts his head slightly, giving a signal to continue. And it was here, according to witnesses who were close enough to see, but not close enough to hear clearly, that Jungkook's facial expression changed. There was a long pause before he finally opened his mouth, uttering something that made Jean hold his breath for a moment. The expression was hard to explain, not surprised, but more like someone who suddenly understood something he had long suspected. Jean then closed his eyes for a few seconds before reopening with a deeper gaze. "You know, sometimes distance doesn't mean hatred," he said. "Sometimes the distance is protection." Those words, although they sound neutral, to those who understand the relationship between members, are like a secret code. And there was only one person who came to fans' minds when they heard distance and protection from Taehyung's mouth. Jungkook did not argue. He just looked down again, looked at the glass in front of him, then said softly, "I don't want him to misunderstand, Hyung. But I can't speak directly either." The sound was so low that it was almost swallowed up by the sound of soft music playing in the background. Why can't Jungkook speak directly? Is there anything that makes communication between him and Taehyung stop? Is it about a personal conflict, or is it precisely a problem involving a third party? Fans have begun to piece together the scattered bits of information in recent months, from diminished interactions in public to brief stares that are no longer as frequent as they used to be. A few days after the meeting, when Jean had already returned to Korea, he attended a media event. In an interview session, a journalist casually asked about the moment in LA. Jean smiled slightly, then said, "Yes, we're talking about something that maybe you will know one day. But I'm not the one to say it." That sentence is like fuel that fuels greater speculation. Fans noticed his choice of "I won't say it," as if Jean was challenging or encouraging someone, maybe Jungkook, maybe Taehyung, to speak up. But what really caught the public's attention was when Jean added, "Obviously, she's talking about someone who's important to her. A person who is never far from his thoughts, even if it seems that they are far apart." Does this mean Jungkook is still thinking about Taehyung?